A driver who came into the sport with a lot of promise and speed, but at first got outscored by a more experienced teammate. He raced and scored points for Williams and became renowned for his skill in wet and tricky conditions, capitalizing on any opportunity he could get, and this led to him becoming a world champion. I'm of course talking about Jenson Button, but I think you can see where the comparisons to Alex Albon begin. Button started out his career with teammate Ralf Schumacher and was unable to outscore him. And when moving to Benetton the next year to be partnered with Giancarlo Fisichella, he was also outscored them. But when Benetton rebranded to the much more competitive Renault car, Button was really able to show his skills and finished ahead of teammate Jarno Trulli. However, due to some internal conflicts between himself and team boss Flavio Briatore, Button left the team for the 2003 season and ended up at BAR Honda, with Renault replacing him with a rookie named something like Fernandoalonso.
Alonso relinquished first place to Raikkonen for one lap, but with the first round of pit stops completed, he resumes the lead.
It was clear then that Button had missed an opportunity, with Alonso able to secure his first win at the Hungaroring in his rookie year, while Jenson, entering his 4th season at that point, was still on the hunt for his first podium. He wouldn't have to wait too long, however, as BAR Honda had a much more competitive car for the 2004 season, and he was able to seize the opportunity and finish on the podium in 9 out of 19 races that year, but he was still chasing down that maiden win. He would have to wait another 2 years for 2006, when at the Hungaroring himself, he was able to get that all-important first win.
He's done it! Jenson Button wins the Hungarian Grand Prix! Get in there!
For 2007 and 2008, Honda really struggled, finishing 8th and 9th respectively in those years. However, it's important to remember that Button stuck with the team, being committed to building it up around him. And in 2009, he got the opportunity he'd been waiting for. During the 2008 financial crisis, Honda at the time was really struggling and pulled out of F1 for the 2009 season, selling the team for just £1 to team boss Ross Brawn. And what happened next was nothing short of a miracle. Brawn and the engineers had discovered an innovation in the regulations that allowed them to use something called a double diffuser, and Brawn GP managed to capitalize the most out of this design, because at the start of the 2009 season, Button with Brawn GP absolutely dominated, winning 6 of the first 7 races that year. And this was where Button proved just how important his consistent driving was. Because even with the Brawn GP car dropping off towards the end of the season due to lack of development funds, Button was able to finish first in the drivers' standings, and Brawn GP took home the constructors' win, taking Button from a man some thought would never be a Grand Prix winner to now being a world champion.
We are world champions! World champions!
But even with a championship so memorable, before he left the sport many years down the line, Button delivered us quite possibly one of the greatest races in Formula 1 history. And for that, I have to take you to the longest race to ever take place, Canada 2011, clocking in at 4 hours, 4 minutes and 39 seconds. The race was plagued with rain all day, and the opening 40 laps, which took 3 hours to complete, had only 12 laps of green flag running, with the rest under the safety car or halted by a red flag. Button had qualified and started the race in 7th, but after a mistake in the turn 6/7 chicane, had dropped down next to teammate Lewis Hamilton. And on lap 7, Button unfortunately squeezed him, causing a collision. This put Hamilton out of the race and forced Button to visit the pits, as he had a puncture. Once in the pits, he had a 30-second gap to leader Sebastian Vettel, but thankfully the safety car recovering Hamilton's car allowed him to close this gap up. Button somehow managed to avoid a penalty for the actual collision, but got caught speeding under the yellow flags, and this resulted in a drive-through, which you could not serve under a safety car. After he served the drive-through, he'd already dropped back to 15th place, and the intermediates held up, allowing him to climb back towards 8th before he had to admit defeat and go on to the wet tyres. One lap later, a red flag came out and Button was 10th underneath it. During this red flag, Button apologised to Hamilton, and the two cleared any differences they had over the incident. When the race restarted, Button dived into the pits to switch back to the intermediate tyres after just one lap of racing. And again, Button got caught up in an incident. He dived down the inside of Fernando Alonso and the two clashed, causing Alonso to DNF and Button to be plummeted all the way down to last on the grid. Thankfully, another safety car to recover Alonso's car kept the grid close, because Button had to pit again. However, within 10 laps of the race restart, Button had already made his way up into the points and into 10th place. And Button then took a 6th and final pit stop to gamble on the slick tyres. And with just 15 laps to go, Button had closed the gap from Vettel to 15 seconds. Another safety car then allowed the grid to close up again, and Button made moves on Webber and Schumacher to take 3rd and 2nd. So on the final lap of the race, he was behind Sebastian Vettel, looking to secure a solid 2nd place. When at turn 6, Vettel made a mistake, causing his car to run deep, and Button made the pass to take the Grand Prix victory.
Absolutely brilliant, Jenson.
This race is often used to show Button's skill at driving in the wet, and this is where I would start to draw comparisons between current Williams driver Alex Albon and Jenson Button. When both initially joined the sport, they weren't able to match their more experienced teammates' pace, with Albon in his rookie year having to go up against the formidable Max Verstappen in a car that most would argue is built around the latter. And with the Red Bull second driver machine churning through Albon quicker than Kimi Räikkönen answering a question, Alex soon found himself out of a seat for the 2021 season. And due to the nature of F1 and lack of second chances drivers are ever really given, Alex looked set to not make an F1 return until he got a call from Williams. And since then, Alex has looked a lot more promising. Despite the car being definitely the worst on the grid for the entire 2022 season, Albon did manage to pick up 4 points. And with Williams building a much more competitive car for the 2023 season, it's safe to say Albon has justified his return to the sport. In the first 15 rounds of this season, he's managed to pick himself and the Williams team up 21 points, scoring the entirety of the team's points. And in a season with 5 teams who have top 10 pace, he's still managed to make it to Q3 6 times. With Albon really showing that in tricky and damp conditions, he's able to push the car to the limit and take it to where it shouldn't really be. And once qualifying the car much higher than its race pace, his brutal defense but consistent driving has shown he's able to secure points for the team.
Yes! Yes! Wow! Well done, everyone.
In my eyes, you can even compare Albon's driving in the wet to that of Jenson Button in Canada 2011. And Albon showed us something similar in Canada of this year, with a great strategic choice to change to the slick tyres early in Q2, meaning he could make it through to Q3, and putting up some mega defending during the race, Albon secured points for the team. Sure, he may not always have been the quickest driver everywhere he's been, but Albon is opportunistic. And like how Button did by staying loyal to Honda and allowing them to develop the car, with Williams' development plan, it could only be a couple years before we start seeing Williams towards the front of the grid, with James Vowles even outlining a plan to start building top-level cars. And like Jenson Button, even though he might not have been winning in his rookie season, Grand Prix and even a World Championship might be on the way. If you did enjoy the video, please subscribe. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers. And if you want to support a small creator like myself, the best way to do so is by becoming a channel member like this wonderful man here has. Goodbye.